is Sankofa Community Affairs, and I am Sam P.K. Collins. Today's guest is Abiodun Oyewole, founding member of The Last Poets, 1960s and 1970s collective of spoken word artists, and the forefathers of the hip-hop movement. Mr. Abiodun, how are you, sir?
I'm good.
You have a book out,
Yes.
I understand, and the book is titled Branches of the Tree of Life. Please explain to us about that book.
Well, my first book that I had actually self-published over 20 years ago was entitled Rooted in the Soil. And really it was put together by some young ladies who I had been working with. And it turned out to be a pretty big deal. I didn't realize how much people like to read poetry in a book. And so whenever I would perform or speak someplace, I would always have books with me and I would always sell them. So a young lady who knew me back then, she has a publishing company, and it's called Two Leaf Press.
Okay.
And so she called me up about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, and she says, Abiodun, I want to publish your book of poetry. I know you've got more poetry than this book that I got, you know. And I said, of course, I'm always writing. Mm. So she had a small press, and she came out to the house, and we talked about what she wanted. So I gave her some poetry and so forth. Then she called me up a cursory out. She says, I need a new bio. I need all your poetry. So she really did a thorough job. And I must say that I'm extremely proud of the book because I have had some wonderful moments just traveling around the world and having the book. And the book itself is like, I guess, eye candy or something, but it always flies off the table.
So, any particular poems that stick out to you in this book?
Oh, there are a number of poems. We have some classics in there. Another Mountain kind of sticks out in my mind because Another Mountain is a poem that is published in 18 different languages. And it's probably one of my most unpopular popular poems. Okay. In other words, yeah. It's a poem that I never do live, but at the same time, it has grabbed the attention of quite a number of book publishing companies that deal with poems for kids. So we're just at about 6 or 7 different anthologies. The poem, sometimes there's a mountain that I must climb after I've climbed one already, but my legs are tired, my arms are weary, and my mind needs a rest. But I must climb before the storm comes, before the earth rocks in an avalanche of clouds, bury me and smother my soul. I'm young enough to climb and strong enough to make this any top. You see, this is nothing, just some more dirt and stone. Mm. And the wind has warned me about settling too long without struggle. The wind has warned me and taught me how to fly, but my wings only work after I've climbed the mountain. And that's really not... That's
powerful.
Yeah, and it's one of those poems that you can't really tell the race of the person that wrote it or anything. It's a pure poem, and it seems to have really, as I say, captured the imagination of quite a number of publishers. And it gets more play than even When the Revolution Comes, which I'm known for, right. And I'm known for a number of other popular pieces, but that particular piece is... It does resonate.
So, speaking of going up a mountain and talking more about your poetry, The Last Poets, from what I understand, was formed officially on what would have been the 39th birthday of Malcolm X, the assassinated Black nationalist leader. If you can just talk to me about the significance of Malcolm X and what was happening around that time that compelled you and your fellow poets to make that group.
Malcolm X was like, I can't say it any better than Ossie Davis. He was our black shining prince. There was no doubt about it. I first saw Malcolm when I was about maybe 14 or something like that. And I was in the back seat of the car going, my family we had joined a church in Harlem, and I lived in Queens, New York. And after church, we'd always go to my aunt's house on Lenox Avenue, 142nd, and we'd eat. And church was on 108th Street. So sometimes my father would drive down Lenox, sometimes he'd drive down 7th. And this particular day, I guess, I don't know why he was on 7th, but he was on 7th, and I saw this orange-looking man, taller than everybody else. I didn't know he was standing on a step ladder, but I just know he was tall, and he was orange. He wasn't black. He had an orange glow about him. And I remember my aunt saying to my mother, "That man's telling the truth, and they're gonna kill that man." And she said it so just matter-of-factly, and I said, wow. And I'm in the back, and I'm thinking to myself, why they're gonna kill him for telling the truth? If I don't tell the truth, I'm gonna get my butt whipped badly. And he's telling the truth, and they're gonna kill him? It just didn't sit right. So as time went on, I don't know what year it was, but I was in high school when he was killed in '65. And my teacher, my homeroom teacher, Miss Carpenter, he was killed on a Sunday. And I remember that Monday came to school, my teacher said, "You can go home, I'll write a note for you to take this day off because a great man was killed yesterday." Because she already knew who Malcolm was. I didn't have no idea who Malcolm was. But I remember that moment. And as time went on, you know, we were listening, my family primarily were listening to Martin Luther King. You know, my mother's Christian, father's Christian, and Martin Luther King was like a disciple from Christ. He was word in the house. And on April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King was killed. I personally felt offended, insulted that, you know, Malcolm I wasn't into so much. But Martin, you killed a man who's standing on a non-violent platform. Right. So I had a relationship with David Nelson, one of the other original members of the Last Poets, and he had talked about putting this collective together to give an example to black people how we need to unify. And he said he'd like to see a collective of poets coming together to form one group to give an example of unification, how necessary it is for us to unify as a people, and maybe that would do it. So I was so fired up, I was so upset and just outraged behind Martin's death. I called David, I said, "David, let's get this group together. I'm gonna get a gun, I'm gonna do something crazy. Let's get this group together as soon as possible." Yeah. So he said, okay, so he put our names, my name, his name, and a brother named Gylan Kain's name on a list to perform at Malcolm X's commemoration festival in Mount Morris Park on his birthday, on May 19th. I was unfamiliar. I didn't know much about Malcolm. I knew he had a whole Black Power kind of a syndrome, but I didn't know all the details. But the park was crowded. It was crowded. And I was really afraid, to be honest. I was a little intimidated about performing in Harlem because I was from Queens and I had never really performed other than in church. I hadn't really done anything in front of the public of Harlem. I mean, I kind of felt like I was going to go on stage in the Apollo and the Sandman would grab me off stage if I didn't do well, you know?
So how did they receive you that day, ultimately?
They received me fabulously. What happened is I had come to Harlem about 2 weeks before May 19th. And the process by which I wrote my first poem, I still use. I walked around Harlem, I listened to black people talk, I listened to what people had to say, and I observed and I listened. And the one expression that kept popping up was, "What's your thing, brother?" And if you said thing, that meant, are you a member of the Nation of Islam? Are you a Black Panther? Are you in the Republic of Africa? But thing had a revolutionary pronoun connotation. Right. And what is your thing was saying how are you helping the revolution? And I said, wow, it's really interesting. So, and it was right in line with the song that was out. It was a song out by the Isley Brothers called "It's Your Thing, Do What You Want to Do. I can't tell you who to sock it to." So thing was the thing. And I wrote a poem entitled, "What is your thing, brother? You know, is it a black thing? We'll build a nation for black people. We'll save black women and children." Right. Poetically speaking, I would not give the poem too many high points. But in terms of getting the message across, in terms of making a statement, I made a statement. And because I have a big voice, people heard what I had to say. Plus, David, Kain, and I walked on stage singing "Are You Ready, Niggers?" And we were chanting this, and the chant just started raining throughout. Everybody in the audience was chanting. By the time we got on stage, the whole place was chanting "Are You Ready, Niggers?" And there were drummers on the stage already, and I told them to stay. I just had a feeling that we would need some rhythm. And so the drummers stayed, and we actually were established. We didn't even have the name of the last poets, but Kain had a poem entitled "Niggers Are Untogether People." David had a poem, "Are You Ready, Black People?" And I had a poem entitled "What Is Your Thing, Brother?" And then that.
Please hold that thought. We're going to go to a video, and after the video, we'll continue talking about the last poets and about the Black arts movement, a movement around the time of the last poets' inception that pretty much characterized Black people's frustration through spoken word. After this video.
We gotta win. No matter how hard it seems to be, we gotta win. Be strong and set our black selves free. 400 years of fighting and living like a slave, giving up our creations to the man who digs our grave. Trying to be just like him was the only thing we knew, and praying to was Jesus when we didn't know what to do. Our mothers scrubbed his floors and showed his women how to sing. Our fathers plowed his fields and treated this white boy like a king. When we tried to get together just to sing a freedom song, or Whitey learned the lyrics from Old Shuffle and Uncle Tom. But now things are changing. Tom is recognized. The movement keeps on moving, and the black man's getting wise. We gotta win. We gotta win. We gotta win this battle, so there won't be no more. We gotta have a revolution, so there won't be no war. We got to win this battle, so there won't be no more. We got to have a revolution, so there won't be no war. Just wanted to sing that little bit. I just had that.
This is Sankofa Community Affairs with Sam P.K. Collins, and today's guest is Abiodun Oyewole, a founding member of the Last Poets. Before we went to our video, we were talking about the group's inception and about the Black arts movement. I would like to talk more about that movement. Where did your group fit within that movement?
Well, we were right there at the helm. We were the vanguard of the Black arts movement in a sense. Our mentor was Mary Baraka, and he actually wanted to become the head of the Black arts movement. There was some conflicts in Harlem, and he had to leave Harlem, and he went to Newark. That's his birthplace. And he started an organization there called Leroy Jones Spirit House Movers and Players. But there was no one who had freed poetry up like Murray did. He was the pioneer of liberation poetry. Before him, I think poetry was done kind of quietly, you know, and with tea and crumpets, you know, and people whispered more or less. But he put brass knuckles on the word. He punched the government in the face, and he said, if you're not doing that, you're not writing Black poetry. So we championed that whole movement. We were very much trying to use poetry, I guess the way an infantryman would use his gun. You know, definitely. Our words were bullets. And another thing that's important to mention, we didn't attack the system as much as we attacked the negative things that we were doing within our own community.
And how did people react to that?
Tremendously. We never performed without having major crowds. People, because we were speaking, I think the main reason was because we spoke the language of the people. We talk about the word nigger, for example. That's a very important character in the community, but it's something that we should not endorse to become niggers, because we know that's a negative aspect that's going to be ultimately self-destructive. So we tried to expose the whole negative aspect of us referring to ourselves and being niggers. And we wrote a bunch of poems to attest to that. Niggers are scared of revolution. Niggers are untogether people. Run nigger. Wake up niggers, we all through. Die nigger. I mean, we went out of our way to try to get Black folks to recognize that we were not niggers, that we were Black people, and that we needed to function from that perspective. Being a nigger being something that's made and manufactured in the United States, and it's not something that we can really build a nation on.
And that's sort of something along the lines of what Malcolm did, holding white supremacy accountable, but also telling black folk that we were bigger than what they wanted us to be.
Absolutely, and Malcolm really was, we were really more or less, I'd say, disciples, poetically, of Brother Malcolm, because he had a serious self-determination program going on, and that's where we were coming from. It was, matter of fact, the thing that made the Last Poets even larger than just the group, we had a place called the East Wind, and that place provided workshops and shows, so we were able to just pass the culture on, pass it on, and to keep it going, to have Sunrise Orchestra, Pharaoh Saunders and Leon Thomas, and of course Leroy, Mary Baraka and his group. We had a number of other culturally active groups perform in our space, and it was every weekend it was crowded. It was very, very crowded, because that was a time of awareness and consciousness. I think we're coming back to that now. I think, you know, I'm in touch with many of the young hip hop artists. I've recorded with some, Common in particular, Nas. I did something on his album, and Chuck D did something on our album. And I think too, many ways the circus is running out of clowns. I think that people are getting to a conscious level where they want to hear something that's going to make more sense.
Definitely.
Because we have been in the circus much too long.
So let's talk more about what happened before Last Poets and the Murray Baraka, the frustrated youth of the United States. From what you recall, what was their outlet?
There weren't many. There were not many outlets. You know, reform school, I mean, which is a precursor to, of course, prison, and I mean, you didn't have a whole lot of outlets, more or less. I think the Black Power movement, the Civil Rights movement, offered some opportunities for folks to become socially active, but the Black Power movement really hit it on the head, because that's what we needed. We needed it then, we need it now. And that was a way for us to be in charge of our lives.
And it seemed like it was more social, political, and more cultural. It took on and encompassed a lot of everything.
Yes, yeah, the whole Black Power movement was about our culture, about our social status, about our buying power, our financial situation. It covered all the principles of Kwanzaa, everyone. And that's something that we really need to address now. And I don't think that we need to blow it up in a neon sign, but we need to be about trying to empower ourselves in whatever way we can. And there are ways.
You know, that's a really great segue to a video that we're about to show. It's your performance at Howard University on the weekend of the 50th commemoration of Malcolm X's assassination. But before we show that, I want to thank you for joining us today on Sankofa on this program, and I want to thank the audience in the DC metropolitan area for watching us. And now to our video.
America's a terrorist. Killing the natives of the land. Killing and stealing has always been America's master plan. To control the earth and everything on it. To divide and conquer is all they wanted. America's a terrorist. Killing the buffalo that roam the plains. Killing and slaughtering animals was turned into a game. Giving blankets contaminated with smallpox to the natives who were here. The beginning of germ warfare. The beginning of white fear. No respect for the land, the trees, or the air we breathe. And Christianity was an excuse to bring others to their knees. America's a terrorist, with a slave system in place to take away the humanity of a darker race. Put people in chains, then beat them with whips. America's a terrorist, chewing tobacco and eating swine, being mean and nasty to those who treated him kind. Take a pregnant black woman, cut her belly open, and let the fetus fall out. Stomp the baby in the ground. To instill fear is what that was all about. Gang up on a black man, hang him from a tree, cut him down and set him on fire for everyone to see. America's a terrorist with a howdy-doody grin and using the Bible to keep others in check while America commits all the sin. Thou shalt not kill. That's not part of the American dream because to kill is a thrill they love to show on your TV screen. Romance the gun just for fun. Drop a bomb just for charm. Oh, this is the American way. And all of us talk about equality, justice, and peace, spewing out the mouths of governmental beasts. But every time blacks tried to find a way to do for self, the American terrorist wasn't having it. And fear is all black folks felt. Rosewood was a town where blacks tried hard to thrive. White folks burned it down, and many blacks lost their lives. Now there was a town in Oklahoma called Black Wall Street, where blacks had homes, a bank, and lots of money, and stood strong on their own 2 feet. But now you see the whites nearby were jealous and just couldn't stand seeing blacks do so well. So they dropped not 1 but 2 bombs on the town in 1921 and created a living hell. America's a terrorist, feeding off racism and greed, not caring, not sharing, but enjoying watching people bleed. Every time Jack Johnson fought and beat a white boy in the ring, white mobs would kill blacks at random because a black man was boxing's king. All the wars we fought to try to win respect at home, but when the war was over, blacks were never treated like they belonged, but rather the subjects of experiments at Tuskegee and other places. For 400 years, blacks lived in fears of the vicious cruelty of the races, tried to march for justice and the civil right to be treated fair, attacked by dogs, fire hoses, beaten by police, forced to live a life in total despair. Bombed the church in Birmingham while the children were in Sunday school. Took the lives of 4 little girls. Yes, this terrorist is just that cruel. American terrorism is like a virus that's homegrown and spreads across the planet too, selling guns and chemical weapons gift wrapped in red, white, and blue. Soldier boys selling guns for hard drugs in exchange. It should be obvious by now that this country is deranged. And yet, we try to pledge allegiance to a flag that brings nothing but grief. And singing that old war song, oh, say, can you? That's the only American belief. America's a terrorist. And no one wants to admit and point the finger at others is the ironic part of it. Dropped a bomb in Philadelphia to wipe out an organization called MOVE. Kill unarmed women and children because the police had something to prove. And all the Black Panthers who are trying to help their community wiped out by the FBI for trying to create black unity. Put drugs in the hood, set folks up for no good, kept unemployment high, education is laced with lies, turned the people against each other, made money more sacred than your mother, caused an avalanche of grief by trigger-happy police, locked the black man up in jail, made him think he was born to fail, and no place are you safe if you have a darker face. Henry Dumas, Amadou Diallo, Michael Griffin, Yusuf Hawkins, Eleanor Bumpers, Anthony Byers, Arthur Miller, James Byrd, Emmett Till, just to name a few, died at the hands of American terrorists. Oh no, terrorism here ain't a damn thing new. And AIDS, oh yes, AIDS has become an epidemic all over the world where black people live. An evil virus created by mad scientists for people who only have love to give. The KKK, the CIA, the Michigan militia, and the police from coast to coast are the real American terrorists, and the government is the host. So now, America says it's ready to engage in World War III. But what goes around has come around. But you know what? You can't kill what you can't see.